Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me, and thanks everyone for dialing in and listening to me talk about mediation marketing. I have an hour and I plan to talk, I think, for about 45 minutes. It might be slightly longer. I have a lot that I want to cover. But if you have questions, we'll definitely save time for that at the end. So you can either ask them directly or you can put your questions in the comment section and we'll try to roll through all of them at the very end of the presentation. So with that said, I'll get started. So well, we might have interacted at some point or another. I've been specializing in the ADR space since 2000 and well, just before 2017, so on over 8 years right now. But my background is I've spent over 20 years in different roles, companies and businesses where we provided sophisticated services to more advanced target audiences. And that's kind of what many dispute resolution professionals do. It's a relationship type of business and practice. And over the years, we've helped hundreds of ADR professionals all over the world in most practice areas. So sometimes I get questions around, I'm based in South Africa. Will this work for me? Or I have this very specific practice that's focused on human rights. Will this work for me? And I always say that the business that we do, our services are location and practice agnostic. So it doesn't really matter where you're based and where you're from. And I think it'll be clear why as we go through the presentation. So we have a proven and effective system for obtaining tangible results. For most of our clients and for most of the people that I speak with, tangible results really comes down to getting more paid business. So that's ultimately what we're trying to solve for. But we do recognize that some clients prefer to just elevate their visibility. They might want to make specific types of connections. They might be employed and they're not getting paid on a case-by-case basis. So they just want to improve and facilitate around that local ecosystem. All of those boxes will be ticked with sort of what we'll cover here today. Now, what we're covering is really the blueprint. So it'll be a lot that we will go through. 3 areas that I want to talk to you about. First of all, the practice maturity stages. And that really will cover everything, whether you're just starting out today to you've started to get your first few cases to actually being quite established. We'll cover the practice maturity stages. Then we'll do some myth busting of mediation marketing because there's a lot of misconceptions here around what it is that actually drives tangible results. And finally, I also want to show you what you can start doing today, because it's nice and fine to listen to me for an hour, but if you forget about everything immediately after, then I guess what's the point? So I'll give you some suggestions, some very tangible suggestions. Now, what are the drivers of success? And if we sort of remember that success can mean different things to different people, but here we're talking about getting paid cases or getting cases. Ultimately, what determines that is where you are today, because if you're starting out today, it would naturally take longer than if you are more established. It also comes down to how much work you put in and the quality of the work. What I tend to see is that it's much better to do a little bit every day or a little bit continuously rather than doing massive bulk efforts once per month. And actually, if you do the right type of business development activities that we'll talk about today, then it will be easier for you. And the final point is the duration of your efforts, because since this is a relationship-oriented business and relationships aren't built overnight, it tends to take time. Again, if you're just starting out today, you will likely have very few relationships that you can leverage. But if you're more established, there's more for you to leverage ultimately, and you can obtain results faster. So what is it then that produces results? Well, 4 key areas that I think is really important. And this really comes down to whether you decide to work with someone such as myself and my company or anyone else really. I think it's really important that the advice that you get or the information that you get is current, proven, effective, and relevant. So it is important that the advice is up to date, because often mediation marketing advice is quite dated. Post on social media. Okay, but how and in what context? stay in touch with your key contacts. Okay, I just started my practice. I don't have any key contacts. So it really needs to be updated and catered for the right, for the right audience. Also needs to be proven in terms of producing tangible results, because there are a lot of marketing specialists and consultants and information online, but very little of that is mediation oriented. And even some of the stuff that is mediation oriented doesn't actually lead, it's not advice that drives actual business. It might elevate your visibility online, and that might not be a bad thing. But if your objective is to get more paid cases, then it's just helpful for you to know, what can I expect if I'm doing these activities? Also effective. Frankly, most of the people that we work with, they don't love business development, at least not until it starts going really well. So if we can solve for minimizing the time and effort spent to drive these positive results, then it's all the better. And then finally, relevant. It is important that the advice is focused on mediators, not some other business, because this is a very unique space for several different reasons. So someone who specialized in helping consultants might not be perfectly placed to help you, because even though there are some similarities, the dispute resolution space is very different from most other areas. Okay, so what is it that you can do? My advice to you, well, I think you can seek out quality information so that you know what to do, how to do it, and when to do it. I think it's important with what I call exposure, which is make sure that you surround yourself with people that are on a similar path. It's great to interact with peers, but it's even better if you interact with peers that are consuming and putting quality information and advice to work from a business development perspective. And finally, even though you can get quite far doing everything yourself, it will generally take you longer, it will be more labor intense, and it might actually end up costing you more. So if you can invest wisely, that's important, and selectively, then it can really help you. So I talked about the practice maturity. So what do I mean by that? Well, on this illustration here, we have some different bits and pieces of information. The red arrow that's sort of going down from the left to the right, that illustrates effort spent on business development. And the green arrow illustrates revenue generated. So if we look at a new practice, then what's key there is really to get cases. You need new cases because you're not getting any cases or very few cases. So you need cases, and to get cases, you need to put in a lot of business development effort. And at this stage, your revenue will be limited. This can actually be a long process. If any of you have gone through that, you will know what I'm talking about. Like it could even be years. For most people, it is probably years to build a very established practice. Once you are established, then you have the benefit of having existing clients and referral parties. So you start getting repeat cases, hopefully, but you will still need cases from new parties. This doesn't require less effort, really, but it requires a different type of effort. And at this stage, you're starting to see your revenue grow. I think most people will be in this space on average. And then finally, at the far right, we have the leading practice. So at this stage, you're getting cases from mostly existing clients and referral parties. You don't really need to focus a lot on new contact cultivation and new business development. You can just take care of your existing network. So even though there's an effort in terms of business development, it's much less than the other two stages, and your revenue will be significant here. Very few people are at that level, I would say. I'll talk about what to do in terms of business development within all of these areas today, that's the reason why we have a lot to cover. One thing that's in common, if you've heard me before, you will know that I harp on about this. One thing that's in common for all practice areas is you really need to focus more on your network, your relationships, your contact cultivation, and less on social media. Social media is not unimportant. It definitely is important, but generally it's important from a supporting effort. So if you are making new connections, if you're taking care of your existing contacts, clients, referral parties, then your social media efforts will help you stay top of mind, stay current, pop up from time to time. But what it won't do for most people is actually get you more cases. I think it's very easy to sort of default to this because when you launch your practice, most people don't have experience with business development. So they will say, okay, I need more cases. Everybody's on social media. Let me start posting on LinkedIn. And then you're not getting cases. And then you're wondering, why that is. You're still doing good work, but you're not doing maybe what's driving results. And it's harder to find out how to do that properly without coming across as needy, annoying, and too salesy. Now, some people will say, well, listen, Dan, I actually think that you can get cases from social media. And that's true. What I'm talking about here is really the path of least resistance. If you love social media postings, you're good at it, and you're getting a lot of interaction, and you're actually able to see that I'm getting cases from this, super, continue. But please do more of the networking anyway. The only time where I see visibility-oriented activities such as posting, speaking, publishing, etc., driving tangible results is when you have an international practice or if you have a unique practice in your local geographical area. In those two situations, because then people will tend not to know whom to contact for those specific cases. So they will default to looking at social media and using search engines, and that's how they will find you. Now, let's talk about the actual activities. So we'll start with a new practice. So this means that you don't even know maybe what you're going to be focused on, or you've decided, but you're still not really getting any cases or very few cases. The first thing that you need to do is to ensure that you have the right mindset. This is a stage that takes a long time. So if you catch yourself coming up with excuses for not actually doing the hard work, then you know that you need to course correct. And some of the top excuses for not doing business development aggregated over 8 years. Some of them are listed here. I'm planning to do it after the summer, or I'm planning to do it just after Australia's January, early February break. Then I'm really going to do business development. I'm just waiting, or I'm just busy now. I don't do this or that. I don't do LinkedIn. I don't do postings. I don't do business development. I need more time to prepare and research. My business is different, so I can't actually do business development because it doesn't work that way. I'm working very hard every day, but maybe you're just spending time on your website and you're not actually doing networking. I've tried to get in touch with people, no one's responding. I'm prepared to do anything to grow my business, but I'm not actually doing much. And I just need to get more training, certifications, holiday, coffee breaks, whatever it may be. So watch out for these things. I mean, I'm joking a little bit here, but honestly, I see this not only with beginners. I have someone experienced that I'm working with right now. That individual had plans to automate and introduce a lot of tech and AI into some of what she was doing. And I told that person early on, I think you need to take it easy with this. Let's just do the basics first. And 3 months in, we're scrapping all of those AI tech ideas because it just ends up taking too long. So please just try to make it easy for yourself. Focus on the basics. Reaching out and connecting with people. You don't have to spend money to do that. But building your AI tech-heavy automation, you will have to spend money on that. So the activities here that you can focus on is number one, ensure that you have a commercially viable offer. If no one else is doing what you're doing, then it either means that you're a genius or maybe there's no scope for doing what you're doing. So just make sure that you know what your target audiences want. The services that you're going to provide, are people happy to pay for those services? If that's what you're trying to do? And I realize that obviously there's different types of mediations here. Some will get their cases directly from attorneys. Some will get their cases from from other parties. Some will get their cases directly from the parties themselves. If you, for example, are in the relationship slash marriage arena. So this also keep that in mind as we go through this. Like some of these activities might not be directly applicable. There's a difference if you're a commercially oriented mediator and if you're focused on family mediation or divorce mediation or personal injury, for instance. So before you have any cases or you have very few cases, obtain observations. It's going to be key for you to just understand how others, how your peers are doing that are more established. It might be a requirement as well, but this will ensure that you build up your experience. Then start doing pro bono work, free legal service work, reduced fee work, whatever it is that you can do to get more cases. What this will ensure is that maybe you'll make a little bit of money, but the most important thing is not that. It is the fact that you're building experience, and depending on who you're mediating for, you might also start building the right connections. Many people underestimate the value of the network that they get through the pro bono, reduced fee legal services work. I would never suggest you to spend a lot of time with other mediators, because you should be spending time with the people that can give you cases. But when you're starting out, it's good because you can learn from them. So look at what people that seem more established are doing online. What are they posting? How are they expressing themselves? And if you can, maybe you can also find someone that's happy to interact with you on a one-on-one basis. Also at this stage, make sure that you start building out your online visibility. But we're not talking about great accomplishments here. Set up a LinkedIn profile, make sure that you have a website. But frankly, you don't need a website before you start approaching people. As long as you have a LinkedIn profile, that's sufficient. So again, don't try to over-engineer this and spend too much time on everything that surrounds your practice, printing the business cards and getting the branding and the logos and everything. It's good, you can do that as you go along, but focus more on the activities around networking. You will have to do what I call a significant relationship cultivation efforts here, because what you need to do is start making connections with people, organizations, entities that can give you paid work. So the way you can do that is identify where your audiences are on and offline. Many of them will likely be on LinkedIn, but let's say that you're in the divorce space. It will be very hard to find people that are going through divorce or considering it on LinkedIn, because that's generally not part of our profile. So then, there's other areas that you can identify your audiences. But if we stick with LinkedIn and if you're able to identify your audiences on LinkedIn, start reaching out to them via LinkedIn. You can also do it via email. If you like calling, you could also call. Maybe you call attorneys' offices, law offices to speak with people there. Try to do 10 to 20 per day. It's very easy once you have this all set up in terms of the messaging. Just send LinkedIn connections and then send an introductory message, etc., etc. Make this find ways of meeting in person or at least speaking over the phone, because that way you can start building the relationship, but you can also start fact finding. This is particularly useful in the beginning because you need to understand your target audiences, what drives them, how they express themselves, and make the interaction natural and genuine. Discuss, ask advice, create opportunities, listen to what they are telling you, and also, I guess, what they aren't telling you, particularly if you are not sure about the niche area that you're focused on. So here is where, sometimes we're so set on what we want to do that if someone else tells us something, then we just dismiss that and we're trying to find someone that validates what our ideas are. But at this stage, it might be better for you to not be dead set on mediating. Maybe what you're doing is you're consulting or you're providing advisory services. It might be easier, you're interacting with an HR department, and then you can sort of naturally gravitate towards mediation over time. That could be one way. So just keep an open mind and listen. Very important to consistently follow up over the long term. Your patience will be key here, and so will scale. it is, everything else being equal, much better to connect with 100 people per month than five. So don't cherry pick too much. Just make sure that you have a lot of activity. Now, if you're more established, I also want to say maybe on this slide is naturally, I don't want to overcomplicate things, but I do like nuances, and there's always nuances. If you are in a metropolitan area, if you're in Sydney, then naturally it's going to be different than if you're in a rural small town. You're not going to have 500 people in that rural town that could become potential clients. So you will have to approach this more in a more targeted way, and the messages will have to be less generic, and you're going to have to be slower and more patient. But the benefit is that these days a lot of us operate virtually, so you could probably also expand and cast a wider net. Okay, establish practice. So this is when you're starting to get cases to when you are actually getting a decent number of cases. So there's a wide range here of practice areas. At this stage, try to get paid work through panels, groups, and organizations. So if you're able to get any cases from these, it's a good thing. Generally, for most people, you won't get a lot, and it will generally not be at the price point that you would charge if you're hired directly. But it's still good because it will generally, it's still cases, it's experience, it's possible relationships, and it's still revenue. You should also strengthen your existing relationships through continuous personal interaction. Super important here to stay in touch with people that you mediated with and try to leverage those relationships. Again, if it's a couple going through divorce, they're probably not going to get divorced more than once, although some people do. But if it's an attorney that's referring you cases, then you could get repeat business from someone like that. And if it's an organization or company, you could probably also get repeat business. Obtain more business and introductions to new business through existing relationships. People forget that not only are you able to obviously get more cases from your existing clients and referral parties, but you can also get them to introduce you to people that they know. For instance, someone that you're working with in a law firm might have colleagues that also use mediators. It might be a bigger firm that has multiple offices. Maybe you can be introduced to people at those other offices. This is the easiest way, using your relationships to get more business. That's really the low-hanging fruit, even though it still requires an effort from your part. And build personal bonds. It is sufficient with a core client group. So if you have 15 clients that are providing you with recurring business, you could basically settle for that. But I don't think that you should, because there are risks also with getting complacent. But that's the beauty of what you're doing here with this business. It might be hard to get those first few referral parties, but once you have them, generally they are of a recurring nature. And there's very few businesses that are like that. Maintain social media presence. So here, it will be helpful for you to start posting and being more active. Maybe you have a newsletter, maybe you're posting on LinkedIn as a means of staying top of mind and current. And also, you still need to expand your network on and offline to cultivate new relationships. Social media is fantastic, but if we're able to move social media contacts into the real world, it's not possible for everybody, but for those who can do that, it will be greatly helpful for you in terms of building stronger relationships. And the final point here, people don't need to see you to see you. Sometimes what I mean by that is that you don't need to be too concerned about whether you're getting reactions and engagement. Sometimes people get concerned that I have low open rates on my newsletter. No one's liking my LinkedIn posts or commenting on them, but that doesn't mean that people aren't seeing them. I had an example the other day here where actually a client that I had been talking to around, he was questioning some of the communication and visibility oriented efforts. It's like, I'm not sure I should be doing all of this. Maybe we could just focus on this one thing. And I told him that, you still have time to do all of this. I think that you should be doing it because we can't be sure exactly what it is that drives results. And then this was probably a couple of months after, he told me that someone he arbitrated for 7 years ago had reached out and booked an arbitration with him. And when he talked to that lady, the lady told him that, well, I've been following your newsletter for years, but she's never commented on it. She's never responded to any message. So we just don't know. Don't worry too much about what other people think and do and lack of engagement. Just get on with your business development. That's the takeaway there. So at this stage, when you have an established practice, what is it that we do? And I realized that we're covering a lot here, but I did want to make sure that we cover all of these three practice maturity stages today. And then we have an opportunity to maybe drill down in the future if Joanne invites me back. So when you're established, there's three things that's important: personalized communication, non-personalized communication, and what I call situation-specific or ad hoc communication. If we start from the left here, personalized communication, what I mean by that is you need to stay in touch at a personal level with your clients and referral parties. Doesn't have to be anything over-engineered. Simple email, simple message, maybe a lunch at some point, maybe you meet at an event, but just staying in touch continuously and perpetually, important. But there's other people in your ecosystem that could become clients and referral parties that are hot leads. With them, we do non-personalized communication, which is broader communication, such as a newsletter, for instance. Could also be posting on social media. And then finally, we do what I call situation-specific communication, which might be something that is, well, it is of an ad hoc nature. So let's say that you're going to a conference and you're contacting the people that you know. Is anybody going to this conference? I'll be there. Let me know. Let's have a coffee. That doesn't happen every day, but doing these three activities ensures that you have different types of activities that are touching your network at different times. It's fantastic in terms of staying current, staying top of mind, and monetizing your opportunities. Finally, we have the leading practice. And at this stage, you're getting a lot of cases. So what is it that experienced mediators want? And I had the benefit of speaking at an event for an association called the National Academy of Distinguished, which is North America-based network of some incredibly successful mediators. I spoke at an event that they hosted in Montreal in August last year. And that was the first time that I really had the opportunity to just focus on what does someone that is mediating 5 days per week actually want? Because it can't always be about money at this stage. So that's what I'm sort of sharing with you here. They still want more cases. Many of the busy ones still want more cases, period. But many also want more flexibility and or less work while maintaining or still growing their revenue. They might still also want specific types of cases or visibility. Maybe they want to be renowned within their space as an author, a speaker, or something. It could also be a question of getting more challenging cases within specific types of niche areas, or shifting their practice. If they're very focused on mediation, maybe they want more arbitration, or vice versa. So that's what we've seen over the past 8+ years. Now, what do you want to avoid at this current stage? You want to avoid adding activities instead of removing them. Because what I tend to see is when you're really busy and you also have the capital to invest, you have the luxury of choice. So you might start thinking, well, actually, maybe I should just sponsor this event. Maybe I should create my own panel of mediators. And these things might not be wrong, but for the most part, unless you're very certain about what you want the outcome to be, focus on the core activities is better, because otherwise you might end up spending and wasting time, money, and energy. Another thing is you want to avoid spending time on activities that can be done by someone else, because when you're really busy, why would you do everything yourself? And it's still quite common. You also want to be really careful about taking things for granted, both when it comes to caseload and network. I've seen clients, and actually I had an Australian client that had been really successful and busy for a long period of time, but that person had neglected taking care of their network, and at one point found that a lot of these referral parties had retired and basically had to start all over again. So you don't want to be in that situation where your referral network is aging out. I think this is particularly relevant when it comes to attorneys because mediation, the mediator longevity, you could be 80 and mediating, but you're probably not going to be 80 and litigating. So at some point, your attorney referral network will retire if you're in that area and getting cases from them, but you're still going to be going. So you need to find a way of connecting with younger attorneys, for instance. So what do you focus on then when you're at this stage? Well, three things. Efficiency. Make sure that you use the right tools, systems, and processes, but also use in and outsourcing. So these are just ways for you to run your business more effectively and also remove yourself from certain activities that you just don't have to do. Ultimately, what we should be focused on is taking care of your existing clients and doing a good job. That's pretty much it. And then everything else can be outsourced. So you want to obviously focus on the growth part here, and that you do through your existing clients. You can get more business from them, but you can also get the new business that I mentioned through introductions. And at this stage, also very important to figure out what direction you want to take your practice in. What is it that's right for you? Do you want more money? Do you want less work? Do you want more interesting work? Do you want recognition? Do you want geographical expansion? What is it? And depending on what you want to do, that will dictate how you approach your business development. So that covers the three practice maturity areas. Now, one thing I just wanted to mention is if you're struggling with figuring out, how to do this, I'm sure a lot of you are now familiar with AIing it or using ChatGPT or Gemini or some other chat engine, but it's a fantastic way of just helping you get started. So let's say that you want to contact new people. Go to an AI chat engine and say, please give me 5 email samples, short and concise, that I can send to my family mediation practice target audience. Maybe you have, or you can also do like LinkedIn. What kind of LinkedIn messages should I be doing? Point 2, existing contacts. Please give me 5 email samples, short and concise, that I can use to stay in touch with existing clients for my mediation practice. Maybe mention the type of practice. Visibility. Please give me 5 different LinkedIn posts that I can use to attract interest from personal injury attorneys for my mediation practice. And then you can iterate. Like the quality of the output really comes down to the quality of your questions. You can see that I'm saying please a lot here because, if AI takes over, then they'll remember me as the very polite one. Please and thank you. So these are just some ideas to help you get started. I have 2 client case studies here. And really, if you want to get more information around success stories, just go to my website, performancelaws.com, and go to reviews. I'll share the link at the end of the presentation. You'll have a lot there. But here's, for example, one client that went from 0 to 100 plus clients in 2 years. Quite unusual. So by no means is this the standard, even if you work with me. But some of the key takeaways from that is he invested in his business. He joined my most advanced program before he did anything else. Like he wanted to launch his practice. And he's been a member ever since. This is probably 4 years. Once he reached 100 plus clients, he didn't sit back. He decided to invest in more one-on-one coaching and more access to the membership in the mastermind. He was very aware of point 3 there of his audience and his market, and that ultimately determined what he focused on. Also, find your business development strength. There's no single activity or effort that will tick all the boxes, but focusing on your primary strengths will make it easier for you. So this gentleman is very good in person. So he's trying to do a lot of in-person networking and relationship building. He had the benefit of also having a network, so he could leverage that for direct business, but also indirect business, i.e. getting introductions. And even for someone like this, it takes time. So you need to stay the course. Building a new practice takes time. So be patient and also join groups so that you're able to interact with peers, but more importantly, with the people that can provide you with business. He also joined panels and firms to help elevate his visibility. He also got quite a lot of cases from one of those panels, even though it was very low paid work. But ultimately he built up experience and relationships with these individuals and enhance your visibility, even though it rarely leads to any work or at least some work. Sometimes it can be helpful to join a company to obtain help with visibility. So this, in his case, it was like a mediation firm that he joined. So I have another example, but I think I'll leave that for now. Like I said, if you want to see more client results, you can go to my website and you'll have hours of content there. Now, what can you start doing today? Well, you can do three things. If you have a new practice, start connecting and contacting new potential clients and referral parties at scale. Try to do 10 to 20 per day. Try to use LinkedIn. If you have an established practice, list all of your clients and referral parties and start staying in touch with them. And finally, if you have a leading practice, first order a business, stop doing everything yourself, or start delegating more. Those are, I think, the key activities for each of these practice maturity areas. Now, if you are interested in getting more help, the best way to learn, I've found, is when you can immerse yourself in the business development. You have access to quality content, you have access to coaching, you have access to peers that are doing that, and you can really immerse yourself, kind of like a university campus type of feeling. So I discussed this with Joanne, and she kindly allowed me to extend a special offer to the Mediation Institute members to what's called our Cultivation System Essentials program. This is a monthly membership program. And when you join that program, you get access to a 15-minute onboarding call with me where we'll talk about your practice. I'll show you in the right direction. Then you have access to e-learning. There's a specific training program with over 40 hours of content, but ultimately within that platform, you have weeks of content. You also have access to worksheet, checklist, tutorials to assist you with getting results. You have access to a private members community. I post there several times per week. Client success stories with key takeaways, latest advice, challenges. You're also able to post there and ask questions and interact with others. So you can get support from me and the team and others in that community. And you can also access monthly group calls that are hosted by me. So just this e-training program used to be priced at $3,700 once upon a time. But now the program is priced at roughly 160 Australian dollars per month. You don't get access to group calls with that. But for the Mediation Institute members, I've added the group calls. I've lowered the price to 19.99 Australian dollars per month. When you sign up, all you have to do is introduce yourself in the community. That's my only requirement. And then you get access to absolutely everything. You can cancel at any time. There's no lockup period. So hopefully I'll see a few of you in the community. How do you join? You go to performancelaws, don't forget the s.com/MIA 2025. And if you want to find some of those reviews and testimonials, you just basically go to performancelaws.com and then you can click reviews and then you'll find them there. So that was everything that I had. I think we're
excellent.
Decent for time too.
We're spot on time. You could very, very good timing, and thank you. That's a really good offer. I know that some of them were thinking 10 to 20 people a day. So if you were one of those ones who think, oh, I don't think I could contact that many people, get yourself in the community and get yourself inspired and motivated.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. No, we are all different individuals. We're all operating different practice areas and geographical areas. So there will be some tweaking there, and there might be some differences. But ultimately, like the best way to do this is really just get started. And if you want more help, then you can ask all the questions that you want in the community.
We've got some time for some questions now, so it'll be a great opportunity. So who's got questions while we've got Dan here with us?
Oh, Claudia.
Yeah, I'm from Poland, like so now this is winter time, and so because it's so dark there, even it's in morning. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Dan, for a wonderful presentation. I'm on the beginning of that road, I am the beginning of my new path, I think. So everything is very important for me, and I can understand that it's hard to ask what have I done, what I would like to do to be successful in Australia. However, I'm sure that you've got one advice for me, exactly for me, for a person who is living abroad, only in one short idea what I have to do. So I really so appreciate for that.
Sure. I'm half Polish, so I
Oh,
always have advice for my country men and women.
thank you. It's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, so and the intention is that you're going to be based physically in Australia, I
Yes,
guess.
yes,
Yes.
yes, yes,
Okay, yeah.
yes.
That's helpful. Otherwise, it's very challenging. So what I would say is at this stage, when you're in Poland and it's all new in terms of your efforts, I would just try to connect with as many people as possible, really, like relevant people via LinkedIn because it's the largest professional network in the world. So it's just easier to find people there. If you're still not sure about exactly what to focus on, I would also connect with people not only from that they could become a potential client, but rather people that you also could have a conversation with. Like maybe you can schedule some Zoom calls, maybe you could do some fact finding, you can ask them for advice. Look at me here. If I get a chance to talk, I never stop. So people like to give you their opinion. So as long as they're open to getting on a call, then you could probably extract a lot of information. So that's what I would do. Like use this time. Don't try to think too hard about whether it's better to do this or that or wait. I think I've been quite clear in my presentation because where we start is rarely where we end up anyway. So it's just better to start and then we see where the road ends. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much. I will contact with you and with you all, so if you want. So thank you very much.
Proszę bardzo.
And
Dziękuję.
And Claudia, there's a community legal service that does mediation that I've got an arrangement with, so I'll be able to introduce you to them for your placement and, probably continue on volunteering there for a little while you build
Thank
skills.
you. Thank you.
Connections. So who else? We've got lots of people hiding in the background. You can turn your cameras on. We've got a few that are kind of midway, and I know you're getting cases and some.
I'm thinking now, is there something that I haven't shared that I should mention? But I think I covered so much. So I'm not sure if there's anything else, and I don't want to get started into a long monologue either. So if you have a question, then please, fire away. Otherwise, you can always schedule a free consultation with me. Or just join the community.
Hi, Paul Ledgerwood. You mentioned LinkedIn as the main source. Are you suggesting that Instagram basically should be irrelevant?
Good question, Paul. I would say this, it depends. If you have a practice that is focused on people that have like professions, I'm not really expressing this well, but I explain what I mean, then LinkedIn is generally better. So if you can find a profession on LinkedIn, it's generally better to use that. If you're focused on attorneys, then you can find them on LinkedIn. If you're focused on HR professionals, you can find them. Insurance adjusters, you can find them. People that are going through divorce, no. So if you have a practice that focuses on dealing with the parties in dispute themselves without representation and without that coming in through a company, then you cannot target them generally one by one unless you find different kinds of referral parties. So then it can be helpful to use other social media and also use search engine optimization and Facebook, maybe Facebook groups and so on. So it really depends. But for someone that has a practice focused on these professional titles, it doesn't make a great deal of sense. So that's my answer. Now, however, I'm onboarding a new client to my mastermind next week, actually later this week, and she is active on social media. She's active on TikTok. She's based in the States, so let's see if she can keep that TikTok account. She's telling me that she's basically created a little bit of a name for herself, and she's getting business from attorneys, personal injury business via TikTok. But I think, again, like this comes down to this one individual.
Yeah.
99 of my other clients are not doing it that way. So yeah,
Okay, thank you.
my pleasure.
And Dan, I've just shared your LinkedIn profile, so I'd encourage people to follow and connect with Dan so you can see his content there as well that he shares.
Great. I'll just also post my website address here.
I agree. Because we're mediators, it's very hard for us to cultivate a relationship with one of the parties because then we kind of got a conflict of interest. So we're really wanting to generate those professional relationships.
Yeah, that is like, that's something that I've had a lot of conversations with clients on recently. When you're in arbitration, it's particularly difficult because you're actually making the decisions, really, whether it's binding or non-binding. Those personal relationships, you need to navigate that very carefully. As a mediator, I see a lot of our clients do that quite unrestrictedly historically. But I think people are thinking a little bit more, depending on where they're based, on the perception of the interaction. So, maybe it's absolutely fine to take a few people out for lunch, but maybe going on holiday with one of them is not great from a neutrality point of view.
Yeah, there's some ethical stuff to navigate there. I guess one of the things is not just to think about lawyers as being our referrers. There's a whole lot of other professionals.
Yes, absolutely, Joanne. That is what, when you join our program, that one of the first things that you do is you fill in what's called like a target audience sheet. And it's just a document that helps you identify who you can get cases from. Because very often, if you ask someone, where are you going to get your cases from? Okay, I do divorce mediation. So couples that are going through divorce, I need to find them. But if you start drilling down slightly, you will find that, well, actually, there might be Facebook groups, Paul, that deal with that question. There might be Reddit groups. There might be Twitter groups that deal with that. There might be associations that help out with that, or where there might be, maybe not help out, but there might be different types of groups where you can find those individuals. Perhaps those individuals also work with therapists. So now all of a sudden we're starting to see like a number of different potential referral parties where you don't have to go out and find those couples that yourself, but where actually someone else is funneling them to you. So absolutely, Joanne. Like it's not only about attorneys. And even for people that get cases from attorneys, there are other sources of cases.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that our members that have got different cultural backgrounds, the Polish clubs and communities in Australia, there'll be ones for you to go and introduce yourself to, Claudia, and, offer to do a little free presentation about divorce in Australia and family law considerations. That's always a great way to, become localized.
Excellent. Well, like I said, if you think of questions afterwards, then you can find me on LinkedIn. Thank you for sharing that, Joanne. And also website, more information. We do have a lot of free content, so you can spend a lot of time with that as well. So just a question of getting started.
Learn and do.
Yes, very good.
First message from Dan.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your kindness, and I feel already really motivated for my
Good. You can do this, Claudia. You can do this.
I can do that.
Get the course finished and get out there. Thank you everyone who came, and for those that weren't able to come and are watching this on replay, yeah, we'll share the links that we've been sharing. So be stressed. And Dan, thank you so much. It was a really beautifully put together presentation. I think helping new mediators to think about what the life cycle of the business is as well, which I think is really important for us to know where we're going if you are just starting out.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Joanna. Thank you everybody for joining. Great to see you.
And thank you for making such a wonderful offer for my members. I really appreciate you doing that.
My pleasure. I hope to see you in the community.